You told me 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were discussing the environmentalist policies of the Nazi regime. And you asked me to kind of go through that and pick out all of the ties.
Because
they're extensive.
Because Adolf Hitler was, he would have been an environmentalist. He was an environmentalist in many ways. And he loved dogs and animals, more than people.
Yeah, we went back and looked at it, and there were a lot of similarities. Much of the 1960s and 70s overpopulation scare shared large parts of its concerns with Hitler. Both movements were obsessed with the idea that they could not produce enough food to feed the increasing numbers of people. Population will inevitably and completely outstrip whatever small increases in food supplies we make, as environmental legend / crazy person Paul Ehrlich put it. Of course, it's not as plausible to find new space to grow food when you're talking about the whole planet. Hitler only cared about Germans and could solve this problem by gaining living space to the east. The book Hitler Ascent quotes Mein Kampf's first volume, noting Hitler's belief that the new Reich would have to conquer with the German sword the soil that the German plow would till in order to provide the people with their daily bread. Hitler's desire for living space was specifically to secure adequate food supplies for the German people. How important was living space? Hitler's two most important goals, the destruction of Jewish Bolshevism and the conquest of living space in the East. Despite all the tactical flexibility and political maneuverability he was to show later in his career, Hitler always insisted on these two goals with dogmatic rigidity. The BBC wrote about the movement that influenced Hitler, including the growing concern about the allegedly negative effects of industrialization and urbanization. There is also a belief in the virtues of agrarian society and the panic over Germany's limited resources of food and raw materials. The only thing keeping those quotes off a Prius bumper sticker is that they're too long. The environmentalists of the day certainly noticed the Nazis' green efforts. German conservationist Wilhelm Leinenkämper wrote that the Nazis refuse all kinds of compromise and demand strict, literal fulfillment. Those refusing the call of sacrifice are under attack, and rightly so. Sounds like something you'd hear about those evil climate deniers today. The book The Green and the Brown by environmental professor Frank Ukoetter dives into the debate as to why environmentalists were so enthralled with Nazis. Much of it was an ability to overlook the nastiness of the regime to get their desired outcomes. But the similarities to modern-day environmentalism are unmistakable, as Ukoetter sums up nicely. The lion's share of conservationist publications between 1933 and 1945 could be printed again today without raising eyebrows. The Nazi policy of Dauerwald, or eternal forest, was a nationwide, top-down, sustainable forestry program that was a passion project of one Hermann Goering. Long before he sampled the sweet taste of cyanide, he said, quote, "Only by the complete subjection of the individual to the service of the whole can the perpetuity of the community be assured. Eternal forest and eternal nation are ideas that are indissolubly linked." Does that sound right-wing to you? For many of today's environmentalists, the Nazi eternal forest program is as impressive as a yummy glass of lukewarm kombucha. Ironically, then we might conclude that it was the Nazis who pioneered the application of ecologically aware forestry in Germany. But is this assessment correct? The book rightly points out that when the war ramped up, the Nazis clearly prioritized the military over the trees, but, quote, "I would argue that this policy left a long-term legacy for the German forest that was ecologically beneficial." Jonah Goldberg also outlined the regime's similarities when it came to these areas in his book, Liberal Fascism. Heinrich Himmler was a certified animal rights activist and aggressive promoter of natural healing. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy, championed homeopathy and herbal remedies. Hitler and his advisors dedicated hours of their time to discussions of the need to move the entire nation to vegetarianism as a response to the unhealthiness promoted by capitalism. A Hitler Youth manual proclaimed nutrition is not a private matter. Organic food was inextricably linked to what the Nazis then described, as the left does today, as social justice issues. The one environmental issue that you don't see Hitler all that concerned about was global warming, which is odd considering the Earth warmed about 0.7 degrees Celsius between 1910 and 1940, just slightly less than the entire amount of warming that has occurred in the last century. I guess the world had more pressing issues to deal with back then.
You think?
Very good. Thank you, Stu.